You're running really hot at night. You're laying in bed, you're drenched. Maybe you're not even drenched and you're just feeling really warm. But it's becoming an issue because you're waking up and you're trying to find all these different mechanisms to help out the situation. The reality is there's a very big cause of overheating at night. Now, I want to make sure I disclose that nighttime sweating and running really hot at night can also be a sign of some really serious things, but this might be low-hanging fruit to address first. So let's go ahead and talk about the #1 cause of overheating at night. After today's video, I put a link down below for an entire variety pack of LMNT electrolyte flavors. So their citrus salt, their lemon habanero, their mango chili, their chocolate salt, their unflavored, all their awesome flavors. You get a free variety pack with any purchase. One of the things that I have talked about in other videos is if you're sleep deprived, sipping on electrolytes does help make it so that you're not wanting to eat everything in sight. Because we do know the literature suggests your brain gets activated a lot more by food cues when you're sleep deprived. I've noticed personally, anecdotally, sipping on electrolytes seems to help. They are a sponsor on this channel, they do support this channel, and your support in trying them not only is something I'd recommend, but it helps keep us doing what we're doing. So I thank you for giving them a shot, and I highly, highly do recommend them. So that link is down below, just beneath this video in the top line of the description. Perhaps you've heard of histamines before. Histamines are what kind of trigger part of the heat response when we get sick. And it comes as a result of an inflammatory cascade that happens. Now, if you have high levels of glucose at night, whether you are diabetic or not, whether you are insulin resistant or not, if your glucose is high, what can happen, not always, but you have an inflammatory response that can sometimes go so high that you have an increase in what are called prostaglandins. Specifically, prostaglandin E2 is the main culprit we look at. But these increase in prostaglandins kind of find a feedback way to increase histamines. So when you have an increase in histamines, you run hot. Again, part of the reason you get hot when you're sick. So, in essence, having high levels of glucose can make you overheat. But I want to be able to tackle this from a multi-pronged approach. You can attack the histamines directly, you can attack the glucose directly, or you can attack sort of the insulin response directly. Some of the ways that you can lower your histamines is by taking vitamin C before bed. The most important thing I should note here, though, is you should do what you need to do to get your glucose down first. Treat the issue, not the symptom of the issue. However, taking in some vitamin C or a little bit of tropical fruit throughout the day, or vitamin C rich fruit like citrus fruits, you don't have to go crazy with carbohydrates on them. You can just do a moderate amount, or just take straight vitamin C in like a whole food form, like a supplement with acerola cherry or something like that, not ascorbic acid vitamin C, as that's a more synthetic derivative. These can affect histamines and make you run a little bit cooler. So that treats that big problem or symptom, right? But there's other issues that are at play. If your insulin levels are elevated as a result, or you're insulin resistant, so you chronically have hyperinsulinemia, this triggers the sympathetic nervous system to kick into gear. Not only will this wake you up, but it also triggers vasoconstriction. So it allows most of the blood flow to get reallocated to your core to keep you warm and to run your vital organs because you're in a time of stress. So this vasoconstriction limits the blood flow to your limbs. This doesn't sound like a bad thing, except that's where you dissipate heat. If you think of an elephant with big ears, the ears help them dissipate heat, right? Well, it's not the sole purpose of our limbs to dissipate heat. However, they do actually do that. One of the ways that you can help this out is by taking theanine. 200 to 500 milligrams of theanine can have a big impact on vasodilation and help you cool. That's one of the ways it has a calming effect. Then there's a little bit more like granular, weird, woo-woo-y stuff that's still in early mechanistic research stages. But there is a study published in Nature Metabolism that was in vitro, but it found that high levels of circulating insulin could impact genes that make us more sensitive to the thermic effect of glucose. So I've talked about this before, but if you sat down and you ate a cherry pie right before you went to bed, you'd probably be sweating at night, right? Or if you go out to dinner with some friends and you overeat and you have a bunch of carbs, do you notice that you get really hot and you sweat that night? That's a pretty common thing because your glucose is abnormally high and your insulin is abnormally high. Sugar itself, glucose itself, is going to trigger you to run kind of hot. But what we're suggesting with this newer research is that higher circulating insulin can make that more pronounced. So how can you combat that? Well, the best way to do that is to combat glucose prior to bed. So berberine, taking 300 to 500 milligrams of berberine about 10 minutes prior to your last carbohydrate meal will help you out immensely. Or if you know you're going to have more carbs than you normally do, going on the upper end of that, like 500 milligrams of berberine, could be very beneficial. Having 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar with some water, maybe with a little bit of lemon before bed. This has a big effect on glycemic control and can actually reduce this and might help you be a little bit cooler at night. Another one that's a little bit more confusing but very direct is taking a very hot bath before bed. And this is something I talk about. Similar to theanine, it's going to trigger vasodilation to cool you from the bath, and that is going to actually last for a while. So you take that hot bath, dry off, and get right in bed. And it can actually keep you cool for quite a while. It's quite impressive how it can actually have this effect. And then something that I've learned recently is that if you are active, if you add 1 to 3 grams of creatine, 1 to 3 grams of creatine can help soak up extra glucose by increasing how much GLUT4 translocation you have. So it allows glucose to suck up into the muscle a little bit more. It arguably won't have this effect unless you're working out. Okay, it helps out with sucking the glucose into the muscle along with activity. So if you're active but you're still struggling with this, it's worth a shot. So as always, keep it locked in here on my channel. I'll see you tomorrow.